Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, I told you that um, possibly I would tell you guys about the incident that took place uh, at the volunteering where I volunteer at, and it's been a while ago that this young man was in, after the work ended and, you know, the majority of everybody left, and it was just the supervisor and a young man who was mopping the floor, a young lady, and myself that was left in the concession stand. I had been helping cleaning up, and you know, and when it was time to leave, because the young lady was going to bring me home. So, but you know, she said, "Wow, those floors hadn't been mopped in so long." She was, giving him, you know, his kudos, his props, his, giving him his flowers, things that, I would say about him doing the floor. So he said, "You're a lie. These floors have been cleaned." And he was cussing her out just for saying that. And, I'm standing there and I'm waiting for, the manager to say that we could leave. The cleanup was finished and we can go. So he didn't say nothing, but he was, down the ways doing his paperwork. And, he could hear this young man cussing this young lady out. And he did it for like 15 minutes. And it's like, oh my God. And the more that he was cussing her, the more intensified he was getting with it. And then, she didn't curse back, but she was saying stuff to him, saying, no, first she was trying to explain to him that, she wasn't saying that he wasn't doing a good job. She was just saying that the floors hadn't been cleaned ever since she'd been there. And she could tell from the dirt that was on the floor. And she was just happy that he was cleaning it. And then, but he just kept going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. The cursing. She cursed her up one wall, down the other one, back up the wall again, down that wall, back up, and then he started going all the way around. And then finally, I'm standing there, but while he's mopping, he's walking toward my direction with the mop, but he hadn't made it to me yet. I said, okay, when he got over to my direction, I would, move over because it's a small, it's not that big of a space. So it's like, okay, we haven't got the say so to leave. And he hear this man talking to her like that. So as he was getting close to me, I say, look, baby, is it that serious? You know, is it that serious that, you have to take it there like this? And he say, oh, you want the smoke? No. How did he say that? Oh, you want some of this too? I could give you some of this too. And he just went on and on, cussing me out. He said, oh, and on top of that, I'll give you some smoke. That's what he said. I'll give you some smoke. I'll give you the smoke, or, stuff like that. And he kept saying stuff like that. So I moved all the way from by him and stood over there by the supervisor. And I asked the supervisor, I said, are you hearing him? Are you hearing him talk to us like this? He said, well, with him and her, they just playing. They always be playing. I'm like, she wasn't feeling that. She was insulted. And he just kept on going. He said, but they always talk to each other like that. I said, cursing each other out like that? Like they get ready to fight or something? I say, oh. So I'm like, and then after she left, because he mopped all the way to where she was, so she walked out of the area. So he put the mop down, and then he started walking toward where me and the guy was. And I told the supervisor, look, I'm out of here. So the boy walking over, looking at me like, okay, I'm finna go down here and give her some more. I'm finna go down here and get her. However they say what they say. So I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. So the supervisor said, okay, I got you. Don't worry about it. So, me and the young lady, we left. He said we could leave, so we left. So I was furious. Because number one, I'm old school. When somebody tell me they gonna give me some smoke, I'm not quite sure what they mean. I had to call somebody and ask them, what does it mean when somebody tell me they gonna give me the smoke? Is that cursing me out? Or is that fighting me? Or are they gonna shoot me, cut me? What they finna do? Give me some smoke. What does that mean? I'm steady asking. So, okay, nobody can say what give me the smoke mean. Maybe I was asking the wrong age group. So, I text the owner's brother, and I told him, look, and I let him know that I want to get paid. These are my paycheck. These are the days that I work, because I'm no longer going to come here, because this young man told me he's going to give me the smoke. And whatever that smoke mean that he's getting ready to give me, I don't want it. I said, and the way that he cursed me and this young lady out, do you know if my brother, any one of my brothers, had a passed by there, or any one of my sons had a pass by there, if it had been one of my cousins or an uncle had a pass by there and saw that man cursing me out, okay, cursing her out, but cursing me out, up one wall, down the other, I said, do you realize what would have happened? And he sent his brother, who is the owner of the nonprofit, and he called me immediately, and he talked to me, and I was upset, and I was telling him what happened, upset, going, sister, talking about giving me the smoke. First of all, I need to understand what giving me the smoke mean, because me in the old days, back in the old days, if somebody had said they finna give you the smoke, they finna pow pow. Do something to you. So make me understand. But first of all, I don't like the fact that he cursed us out for no reason, especially the way that he did it. Just because she mentioned about the floor being mopped, and that he was doing a good job, and he didn't like it. He didn't like it because of whatever it was that he was going through, because it definitely wasn't because of what she said or because of what I said. So I was upset, and I was kind of intimidated about going back to that job because of him. So the next time to go to work, I didn't go, because I wasn't sure, what that smoke was. But then when it was time to go back again, I did go because I gave myself some time to calm down. I didn't want to talk about it to my sons because my sons would have reacted in a negative way. I didn't talk about it to my brothers or anybody in my family about it because I knew that the reaction would have been negative. So when I went back, all of the people that was working there before I started working, who knew this man and who was friendly with him or friends with him or his family or whatever, they wasn't talking to me anymore. They didn't want to, not even socialize. I ain't talking about socialize. But say, for instance, in the concession stands, if you need help with getting something done or whatever, somebody would be there to help. They didn't want to help me no more. So I had to run around. I had to do things on my own without them. Okay, not a problem. I'm old, but I still can do it. And that's before I went to that blue belt stand. That wore me out. But then another day, he came back to work after the supervisor, the owner, had spoke to him. He came back to work. And what he did is, he gathered him and 3 to 4 other people gathered behind me. And mind you, it's barely enough space to walk around. People are like, excuse me, sorry, didn't mean to bump into you, stuff like that, and so I was cashiering and waiting on a customer. So I needed to go and get something from a customer. And the young man who had been talking to me wrong was standing directly behind me. He was standing like, I'm standing here. I'm standing right here. And he's standing with his butt almost pressed up against my butt. But not quite, but a hair. And the other person was standing on side of him, and the other person was standing in front of him, and the other person was standing, it was like a box. So when I stepped back into the young man. I say, oh, what is this? I say, oh, because I didn't even step back far. And he was there. His body was there. And I'm looking around like, okay, what the hell? In my head, are they trying to give me the smoke? What's getting ready to happen? So he was like, oh, she bumped into me. Oh, did you see that? And she didn't even say, excuse me. She bumped into me. Did you see that? And I'm getting ready to go get a customer what the customer just paid for. And it's like I was pinned in. And then this young man gonna say, like, I did something to him. So, okay, I went and grabbed, it was popcorn. I went and grabbed the popcorn after I went around him. I'm like, because to me, I thought with him standing that close to me, he would say, oh, I'm sorry. But he didn't say nothing. But I ain't worried about it because the only thing I wanted to do was take care of the customer. So after doing that, I went and got the popcorn, and I was making my way back to give the customer what the customer just paid for, and he's still standing there. He's still blocking my register. He's still blocking me. And I say to him, Excuse me. He say, finally, finally you said excuse me. Finally. I say, what? I said, okay, how about you don't stand that close to me? Don't stand that close to me. You know, and don't stand that close behind me anymore. Don't do that. You know, since you're making this scene that I bumped into you, how about you were standing too close to me where your butt was almost touching my butt? So don't do it again. You know, you're standing too close. You were too personal. So he's like, you know, wait a minute, somebody's knocking. Okay, I'm sorry. So after I let him know that, you know, you can pass by or whatever, but don't hover. Don't stand behind me where your butt is almost touching my butt. And there's no reason for you to stand there because you're not working. You're not doing anything, but you're standing behind me like that. So find somewhere else to just stand like that, and don't stand behind me like that. So what he did after he went down, he made a big mess. You know, he tried to get me fired. He tried to, you know, he went through, because all of them were friends and all of them was like, you know, had each other's back and whatnot. So it's like, you know, I felt threatened. You know, I felt insecure. I felt like, you know, I felt like, you know, somebody's going to give me some smoke. So when they moved me to the baseball stadium at, well, I was going to the Bluebell stand, and there's another stand that I was going to, between those two stands I was working at. So that at first I was going to quit because of him, you know, because I didn't want to work in that type of environment. And then when they moved me, I felt better. But before they moved me to Minute Maid, well, not, they used to call it Minute Maid. They call it Daikin. You know, they call it, you know, it's renamed, but we still call it Minute Maid Stadium. But before they moved me there, when I thought they wasn't going to move me, they were going to let me stay there, I asked another nonprofit if I can work with them instead of working over there. You know, because I didn't want to be in that environment. I didn't want to, plus the people all got mad at me, you know, because I told, and they said, snitches get stitches. I wasn't supposed to tell. I wasn't supposed to say somebody was threatening me. I was supposed to just go and endure what he was doing to me. So, so I wanted to move. And when the young lady who I was going to move to her nonprofit, she said yes, but I told her to give me some time. I told her to let me, you know, give me some time to do this, you know, because I didn't want to just up and leave him, you know, the owner of the other place, right away, just like that. And she agreed, but she's so pushy. And she kept trying to force the issue, you know, of me moving. Do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. You know, that's because she needed more people to work for her nonprofit, because she wanted a larger stand. But I said, okay, just be patient, because what I didn't know is, you know, they fired this young man because of how he treated me. And I didn't want to just up and leave this the nonprofit that I was working with until basically he found somebody else to take my place. And I didn't want to just up and leave him like that, just poof, just like that, because he did have my back, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that he did that. I didn't know what took place. So the whole time that I was, timid about going back to the other place, uh, this is what took place. So after after talking with the the owner that I work for currently in the nonprofit, his feelings was hurt that I was gonna, talking about leaving. His feelings was hurt that, he fired the guy because of how he treated me. And, I'm like, but I didn't know. I didn't know that he was no longer there. I thought he was still there. And that's why I didn't want to go back to the other stadium. That's why I didn't want to work with that particular young man. So in the meantime, the young lady who I spoke to about, going, even though I told her that I didn't want to move right away, she still put my name down for me to work for her at a different stadium when I was supposed to work for my current nonprofit, you know, until until I let her know that I'm ready. She put my name down to work at the other place, and she tried to force me yesterday. She tried to force me to come and work at her stadium. I mean, in her concession stand. And she did it in front of the people who are in charge, you know. And she tried to get them to convince me to come work with her opposed to working with the people that I was working with. That I felt that was disrespectful to me because I didn't need that. I don't need somebody to be a spokesperson for me to get me to work somewhere. And I don't need a spokesperson for me to talk to my current nonprofit, manager, owner, in order for me to communicate. And she tried to force all of that to get me to come over there and work at her concession stand. I was disappointed. And all of that right there is my fault because I asked her to help me get away from that young man so that I can continue to volunteer. But when I asked her to be patient, I asked her to give me some time. I asked her to let me handle this situation. And when she kept pressing the issue and she kept trying to force me, I felt so disrespected. Y'all tell me what y'all think. So now I may not have a nonprofit to go and volunteer with because I'm not going to volunteer with her because I don't want to be pushed around like that. I don't want somebody to feel that they can bully. That wasn't a bully, I don't think. That was just being pushy. That was being pushy. And she tried to push her authority. I don't want somebody to treat me like that. So, you know, I was better off being with the one that I've originally been with, because he was protecting me and I didn't know it. And he was looking out for me even though I could be a handful. You know. So, guys, with that being said, like, share, and subscribe on my video, and I'll see you in the next one.